sleep at night.
What time do you go to bed, Coach?
I literally am in bed by 9 o'clock on non-game night. I get up at 4:30.
Ooh, Lord, I couldn't do it. All right, here we go. All right, we're back for another episode of
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Technical difficulty. It's been a while. I got to get used to the controls again. I'm Langston Worst Jr. I got the guru, Coach Rick Lewis. Beside him, I got Gary Richmond, the championship coach from Vance and Hopewell. Micah Drayford, intern, photographer, videographer extraordinaire. Did about 30,000 interviews over the holiday break, working hard. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well. Glad to make it to 2021. Below me, I got my man Alex Bass up in Raleigh, gonna give us the scoop on all the Wake County goings on this week. What's going on, Alex?
Happy New Year to all, and always good to see everybody, and looking forward to what's going to be a great season of high school basketball, because for whomever might have transferred, whomever might not be playing, whoever might be graduating early, we're going to celebrate who is playing, and it's going to be a great season because of that.
I'll tell you who is playing. Is Huff High School's playing this week. What we looking like, Coach Group?
We're gonna play Wednesday. We're gonna give it the best we can. No promises, no guarantees, but we'll try.
We need a 2-0 week from you, Coach. 2-0.
That's the goal. Hey, we can't be 2-0 if we're not 1-0. That's the goal first. 1-0 first, baby.
I got my man Randall Clark, the best trainer I know, and beside him, Christy Mitchell. Christy just told me something I did not know. West Meck does not have a varsity team.
That's correct. They don't have a varsity girls team this season.
Wow. What's that going to do to you guys' playoffs?
So what it looks like is we're already the school or the conference in Charlotte that only has 7 teams. Everybody else has 8. So we were able to add 2 non-conference games to make a 14-game season. So everybody in our conference now is down 2 games. And so everybody's kind of scrambling to try to fill in with the other team, whoever is playing that week, trying to get those games filled in. But for the state playoffs, we go from having a 7-team conference to a 6-team conference, which takes us from what the state had originally said we would have 2 automatic bids to the state playoffs. Now it's just 1 automatic bid to the state playoffs, hoping that we get a 2nd or a 3rd wild card to go as well.
Yeah. Well, that said, that's an interesting proposition. We want to take it right to the zone. Let me put my man Alex back in. I took him out because Alex has to host in the zone. We're going to jump right to the zone, let you guys discuss all the goings on in girls high school basketball this week as we get to week 1.
And good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year once again. We are in the zone, and I'm in the zone with legends right here. This is the classic situation I like to celebrate where 3 of us certainly belong and 1 of us doesn't. And we know the one who doesn't belong, but I'm honored to be with these 3 legends right here. So let's go ahead and go in the zone right now. Like I said, this is one of those situations where I'm excited about this season because we're going to play with who we have. We're going to coach who we have, and it's going to be great all the way around. I don't care about the transfers. I don't care about who's not playing. I don't care about who graduated early. We're going to play with who we have, and this is going to be a great season right here. So we got this first poll, and we all know what preseason polls mean. So much for where you start, but where you finish is what matters. But here we are with this statewide poll. So let's just go in the zone. And what do we see in this poll? Coach Mitchell, you want to start us off here? I mean, are we talking about teams who have a serious chance of winning. I mean, we really don't know this year because of all this craziness, but start us off.
There's definitely some great teams on that list. I think that Vance and Independence both have a really good shot at winning the state championship. Of course, Southeast Raleigh is always in the mix in there. Mallard Creek, they graduated a lot, but CJ always comes up with something every year, so he's always going to be competitive as well. Providence Day, of course, they don't seem to disappoint very many times, and they're on a roll so far this season, so I can see them going really far in the independent league. And also Cuthbertson, which are just the teams that I'm really familiar with. I scrimmaged Cuthbertson yesterday, and they've got a really strong group as well.
All right, Randall, what you got?
I mean, I think, Vance at the top, I completely understand that. You got two bigs inside, working, dominating. I'm excited to see how Vance comes out this year. Independence, obviously, adding Jessica Timmons is going to be a fun team to watch. I'll be interested to see how a young Mallard Creek team, comes back and adjusts this season. I'm sure, like Coach CJ said a couple weeks ago, it's going to be a lot of learning, a lot of teaching for him. So it'll be interesting to see, how this season kind of unfolds for that group. Like Coach Mitchell said, it's a little bit different as far as the playoffs go. So I think when you talk about Cuthbertson, I'll be very interested to see who comes out of Union County, because I think it's going to be a 3-horse race. And you got Cuthbertson, you got Charlotte Catholic, and you got Weddington. And only 2 of those teams are going to make the playoffs. So somebody's going to be sitting at home, obviously on the girls' side and the boys' side. So those are some of the things I'm looking forward to seeing here as we get started this week.
All right, and to conclude this segment, here we are. We're about to watch a piece of history. Not since the 1998 men's Final Four have we had this opportunity right here. If you remember, on the pregame show at the Final Four, recently retired UNC coach Dean Smith got to talk a little bit about the Final Four Tar Heels that year. And here we have the one and the only Gary Richmond with a poll right here with Vance at the top. We haven't seen this since Dean Smith. So, Gary, take it away for us. So you're looking at this poll right here. Practically no one has a better perspective historically on the Vance program and currently where it is right now. And you see them leading off right here, obviously coming off the recent seasons they've had. Where do we stand here?
Well, you're definitely going back memory lane, because I remember in 2002, I think it was, we were preseason #1 when I was at Vance. And we didn't quite get there. We got there the following year. But what caught my eye is Vance and Indy, of course. That's and Mallard Creek been in the top 5. That means you got 3 local schools that are consistent. Mecklenburg County consistently has somebody around the top. I've seen Vance, like you say, they have the size inside with the Moreland sisters. And I'm helping out at Hickory Ridge this year, and we scrimmaged them on Wednesday. And what stood out to me is they're still improving. Looks like they're still growing too. And unless you can match up inside with Vance, it's going to be tough to knock them out, because not only do they have the Moreland sisters, but that team, 4 out of 5 starters have been together for 3 years. So they have experience. They know how to play together. They're good at controlling pace of the game. Now, I think what would be interesting with Indy, I've been studying them on tape this week, is they are a contrast that they could play faster. And so, if those two ran into each other, it'd be a contrast in styles. Whose style would dictate the game? Is it going to be a slow down, pounded inside Vance game, or is it going to be a full court, up and down Independence game? So I think that's an interesting contrast between the two teams up at the top. Of course, like you said, Mallard Creek, they're always going to be in it because they got CJ. and they have a culture that he established along with Kerry Sargent, his assistant coach. They have a culture there where they expect to win, even when they're down a little bit. The culture that he has created over there is good for 10 points. So teams that play against them, a lot of times they psych themselves out. As far as the rest of the standings, I think, kind of piggybacking on what Randall and Christy said is there's going to be some situations during the year where somebody's going to be missing somebody because of COVID. One or two players get quarantined at the wrong time, and that's really going to affect teams. I think if everybody stays healthy, when I say healthy, I'm talking about, no ACLs, no sprained ankles, but also if they can stay quarantine free, you have a chance of making it to the playoffs, because I know a lot of high schools have run into situations where they had to shut down practice for a few days, even a few weeks, because somebody on the team tested positive or they had close contact with somebody due to contact tracing. So I think the key is staying healthy and staying quarantine free is going to dictate a lot of how the standings play out this season.
And as we move on here, I'd like to add very quickly, as I've said previously, and I'll say one more time. Obviously, we have some very good basketball in the Greater Triangle area. Southeast Raleigh always will be in the mix. Millbrook is resurging this year back into the mix with a new coach. Previous coach Chris East is now the school's athletics director. Wakefield has been competitive in recent years. Wakefield is coached by Donald Williams, who was UNC's Final Four MVP in 1993. So they'll certainly be in the mix, but I'm going to reiterate what I've said all along. Until Southeast Raleigh gets it done, there is no conversation. Until Wakefield or Millbrook, this time around Millbrook with the new coach, until they close the deal with the new coach, there is no conversation. And I'm not deviating from any of the Mecklenburg County powers until somebody from Wake County closes the deal. So until that happens, there is no conversation. So we talk about some things that have happened in the first few weeks of practice before we get to game time. So masks, we're going to see them in games this week. We've seen them in practices. We've seen them in scrimmages and games for the first time. Take us through what it's been like, Christy, and then we'll go to Jason and Randall. And obviously, Randall can give us from a training perspective, too. What have we seen?
So we've been practicing in mask for probably a little over a month now. And so the girls are, I wouldn't say that you ever get used to it, but it's not quite as bad, I think, as it was at first. But yesterday when we had our scrimmage and the girls wore their mask continuously in a real competitive environment, one thing that the state association has done this year is give us an extra timeout. So we were able to utilize that yesterday. So midway through each quarter, there's an official mask timeout. So around the 4-minute mark of each quarter, the officials will call a timeout. Or I learned yesterday that, Jason, if you call a timeout around 4 minutes, then it actually goes to them. You're not counted for that timeout. So coaches will be able to strategize a little bit how they use their timeouts now, a little bit better. But the 4-minute mask timeout was literally just a time for the kids to come over, take their mask off, get some water, get a breather, and get right back at it. So if you have kids that are playing, the majority of your minutes, they're still going to struggle a little bit. I mean, we tried out a couple different masks. We have some South Meck masks. We have just the really the blue ones or black disposable mask. And the girls seem to like the disposable mask a little bit better. They're a little bit lighter weight on their faces, and just being able to keep them up. It hasn't been fun, but we all know that we will do just about anything right now just to make sure that we have a season. So, if we got to wear a mask, then we wear a mask.
Jason, I want you to follow up on that, but I want to ask this question too, in light of what Christy said. the timeout situation. Is it incumbent now and are coaches making a point of designating one of their assistant coaches as being responsible for what effectively is commensurate with a college TV timeout now? That if we're getting close to that 4-minute mark, have you told one of your assistants, you got to tell me if it looks like we're going to get in a situation?
I'm
Because
texting him right now. I'm
officials are
texting
actually
him right
calling
now
that
to
timeout.
remind me. I just text him, and if he doesn't, I'm going to be looking for a new assistant, Alex. So if you get into the Charlotte area, we could be talking about this, commiserating, as you might say. I mean, like she said, that's the first I heard of that. I'll say this: we had a scrimmage long before Christy's team did, before Christmas break, and we talked about the mask, and we kind of practiced, how we would do it. My understanding and how they enforced it was very much like shirt tails. And we all remember those issues. Shirt tails come out after a couple of, once time warning. Then the next time they're going to say, "Hey, coach, get this kid out." So we've already addressed that. I mean, it's a non-issue. To be honest with you, I'm tired of hearing masks. Now I'm going to use this situation, like I said, for my assistants in that 4-minute area. If we're not on a good run, we're going to be calling timeout, and then I'll make sure the referee knows the situation that, hey, this, it's before the 4-minute, or, the 4-minute mark, that's not my timeout. I still got 5.
So what he did say, we had 8 officials there yesterday, and they kind of brought us in and have a little clinic with all the kids that were there, and to tell us all the different rules, the no jump ball, the visiting team gets the ball first at the beginning of the game, and went over some things like that. And when they were doing the 4-minute timeouts, if it's on a run, they're not going to call it. It's only going to be called on a dead ball. So but they said if the coach wants to stop the play and call the timeout, then that's when they'll take that as their timeout. So that's something that, I think is going to help out a little bit. Definitely, like Jason said, you don't have to burn your timeout, the 4-minute mark, somewhere around in there, even as if it's 4:30 or 3:30, being able to call that timeout, stop the clock, and let the kids get a break.
Well, Coach, if I'm on an 8-0 run, that doesn't help me.
I know, right?
I'll say something else. Oh, go ahead, Al.
Effectively have 9 timeouts in a game now, more or less.
That's correct.
So
it's just like a TV timeout.
Coach, did they do everyone in your scrimmage each quarter?
Yes, every quarter, around the 4-minute mark, you get a timeout.
We got the first one, but I think the second, third, fourth quarters were. We might have needed a few of those.
And quickly before we move on, Randall, you've seen these kids in training environments. What can we carry over from a training environment to a game environment now that we know how to deal with these masks? What do you think the most important takeaways that you've seen one-on-one that can be carried over from a training environment to a game environment?
I think Coach Mitchell hit it right on the head as far as, I don't think the kids ever get used to it, but they haven't been doing as much complaining. They're okay with the mask for the most part. I do think that the blue disposable masks seem to be the favorite. They seem to be more comfortable and easier to breathe in those. So it's like I tell my players, I'm like, if you got to wear them in the game, we might as well work out with them. So everybody's had a mask in our workouts, and just trying to prepare for the upcoming season. For the public school kids and for the private school kids, obviously just continuing to make sure that they're able to finish their season.
All right, Randall, let's keep it going here. So you get to work with a lot of these wonderful young people right here. A lot of big games this week. We got Vance Mallard Creek, we got Archer Kell, South Meck, we got Independence, Hickory Ridge. So what should we be on the lookout for? I know it's a little harder in terms of being able to go to games. So I can't say which gym are you going to grace with your presence.
Right.
So obviously it's a little different, but with these big games, what are you looking out for? What should we be watching for?
I was telling somebody earlier today, like it was going to be really weird because now we're into January and I still haven't been to a high school game. It's not normal. I'm not used to not watching a game on a Tuesday or Friday night. But I think obviously Vance Mallard Creek is the one that jumps out at me on the girls' side, especially just because they battled so many times last year. Like it was every game, and they met each other, and you had a blowout, and then you had overtime. It was just great basketball last year when they met. So to start off the season with those two teams is going to be very interesting. I think one of the games that I'm really excited about that's not on there is Butler and Rocky River. And I think, with Coach Kirby on the boys' side, this is his first game in Rocky River. He gets, Calic Duke Thomas. And he finished the season last year averaging close to 28 points a game, 5 games a season. So that's one young man who I'm really excited to see because he can just fill it up.
All right. Gary, what are we going to see from Hickory Ridge this week?
I hope we'll play well. The first game is always a learning experience, and then the second game is the growing experience. You usually make your most improvement between game 1 and game 2. Hopefully we'll play well. Hopefully Independence hadn't started to mesh yet. This will be their first game with these new players. I don't know if they're playing a new style or anything. So, we have a new head coach in Jupiter Wilson. So they don't know what they're going to get out of him either. They probably figure he's going to carry over a lot of what they did last year. But that'll be a surprise. It's some good matchups to start the year out. One of the best things about it, the winners of all of these games, they got a leg up. Okay, now they're the front runner, and anything that may come after this, including contact tracing, at least you got that one game in, and you got that one leg up. But I'm interested to hear about what happens with Vance and Mallard Creek. Because neither has made a lot of changes. I've talked to both coaches, and they kind of like, what you think? What they got on the other side? What they got on the other side? And it's like, y'all know what each other does. So I think that's the big one right off the bat.
Christy, I look at your team's matchup this week, and I have to ask the question because of one of the things that'll be a prevailing disappointment this season. I guess there's still no way scheduling-wise, even with the close proximity of South Meck and Ardrey Kell, that you'll get to watch your son at all, is it?
Well, I do know that I get to watch him 3 times this year. The JV game on Friday got moved to Thursday this week, so I was able to rearrange my practice times on Thursday so I could see him on Thursday. And then the 2 games that we play out of county, Fox Mill and West Cabarrus, they play like we used to. They play all 4 games at the same site. So I'll be able to see him play 3 times. So it's not 14 times, but it's better than none.
So what are we going to see from the Sabres?
Well, you're going to see a good group of girls that work hard. We have some size. We have some shooters. We have some speed. A lot of inexperience, but a lot of good athletes out there that just work hard. They're great kids to be around every day. They're soaking up everything that you say. And the matchup between us and Ardrey Kell, it's so tough jumping right into a big matchup your first game. Normally you have 5 or 6 non-conference games to prepare. Instead, you're here, 2 big games this week. But with Ardrey Kell, with Coach Busick not there anymore, it's really hard to tell what they're going to look like. Before, I always knew this was going to be a battle. It was going to be, it didn't matter what kind of kids he had. That was always going to be a good team to be, to throw at you early. I think that Coach Rory's doing a great job over there, and but it's just a toss up. I have no idea what their style of play is going to look like this year. At least the last 8 or so years with Busick, you knew what you were going to get. You knew they were going to run it. You knew they were going to press you. You knew a lot of things about them. So we'll see on Wednesday night. We'll be ready, but not really sure what it's going to look like yet.
And lastly, Gary, just to give us a holistic perspective here with some of these matchups here, big matchups to begin a season. Now, this is a little different I mean, particularly with this being just in really a conference framework for the most part. But these high-profile matchups to begin a season in what's going to be a sprint rather than a marathon, 14 games. What is the impact in terms of, even like you talk about a team like Independence who maybe hadn't meshed completely yet, but to have a matchup with Vance and you have to come with your horses on day one, and what do you think can be the takeaways for either of these teams in that kind of a situation?
Well, I think like Chrissy said, you don't have the 6 or 7 games early to get ready for the big matchup. So I think the biggest takeaway is who's in shape, who's in game shape, because everybody didn't have the same off season. Some people got workouts in, some people didn't. Some people only got a few in, some got a lot in. So I think are you in shape? And I think experience will be very big early. Experience. Do you have kids that are returning and know how to run your basic system that you're going to carry over from the previous season? I think that's big. That's why I see, Vance having the advantage on the girls' side, because like I said earlier, you got 4 of those starters. They've been together for 3 seasons. They know how to play together. And so I think conditioning and experience will be the most important thing early in the season. Those programs that have new coaches or 4 or even 5 new starters, they have to be careful that they don't get off to a slow start, or they could miss out on the playoffs later on.
Randall, you want to close us out with any final thoughts before Gary goes one-on-one with Micah?
I think the big thing that I'm going to be paying attention to when the box scores come in this week are going to be the turnover battles. I think early in the season, when you haven't been playing against each other, a lot of these matchups are going to be dependent on who takes care of the basketball. And I think that's something that we don't necessarily always talk about, but that's always a big factor, especially early on, like who's going to be able to take care of the basketball, who's going to be able to execute. And I think when we look at those things, I think they'll really be able to tell us, who started out on the right foot.
I think it's going to be really interesting because coaching experience is going to be a big deal. And having somebody like, not just because they're on the program with us, but having somebody like Coach Groove and Coach Mitchell to have kids ready to play in playoff type environments is going to be really important. I'd hate to be a new coach, even an experienced new coach with new kids going into the season, because every game counts. You don't have any warm up. It's like you got to win, or you really could be out. I mean, you could lose one game, it could cost you. But we're going to go now to One's Got to Go, Alex. It's on you. So here we go.
All right. Once again, we know that everything is good, and as great as everyone is on this show, sooner or later, we all know that one has got to go. So let's take a look here and see what we got here. One's got to go. Lady Gaga, Beyonce, or Rihanna. We'll start in the upper right quadrant here for all our math teachers out here. Upper right quadrant, first quadrant. Randall, one's got to go.
Lady Gaga. Sorry. I appreciate everything you've done, but she's going to be the one that got to go. No way I can get rid of Mrs. Carter, and Rihanna's definitely not going anywhere. So this was an easy one. Lady Gaga's got to be gone.
Kristen?
This isn't my genre, really. So I really don't care. I'm going to say Rihanna.
Jason?
Well, the Sabres go 1-0 this week. At least the first day. It's got to be Rihanna. Lady Gaga reinvented herself. So she was in one area, And then the movie A Star Is Born. She
Yes.
did acting, and she's expanded. Randall. He just didn't stay in one venue of training. She's expanded and reinvented herself. And of course, Beyonce. I mean,
Yeah,
my wife. That's her girl. She's Queen Bee.
Coach, we do know that Rihanna does more than just make music, right? Like, she hasn't put out an album in at least 5 years, because she's doing makeup and clothing and all that stuff. I get Lady Gaga did a movie.
Or her name is.
Hey, listen. All I know is Rihanna makes a lot of money outside of music, and
I think all three of them on there make money. But yeah,
yeah, that's for sure.
So you realize, to that end right there, in terms of Rihanna, that you talk about someone who I don't think has been on tour in seemingly 5 years, let alone put out an album in 5 years, and that's our good friend Sade. And we're keeping Sade.
Smooth operator.
Absolutely. But yeah, once again, Lady Gaga's got to go. I'm not real big on reinventing myself. I am who I am. I have pretty ingrained philosophies about certain things, in case any of you were wondering about that. So I'm sure anybody that's watched this show has realized that, Alex.
Sure.
So I'm not a self reinventor. So Lady Gaga can join NSYNC and say bye bye bye. All right, we keep it rolling here. Next up, one's got to go. What are we gonna do this? How could we not bring Chinatown to us, just like we did during our college days with the good takeout, or pizza, or wings? Oh, come on, 20-cent Tuesdays with BW3s from my days at Carolina. Man, all right, who's got to go? Christy, start us off.
Chinese takeout all day. Pizza and wings. That's probably a weekly thing in my house.
Randall.
No way I'm getting rid of wings. DD Peckers, one of my favorite wing spot here in Charlotte. No way I'm getting rid of those things. And I'm with Coach Mitchell. Pizza is a staple in the Clark household, so that's got to stay. Chinese takeout, unfortunately, got to go kind of by default.
Jason?
I got to agree with Randall, unfortunately. I mean, I know it helps him out. I mean, he's got to get a few more hits if I agree with him. I'm sure social media will blow up. But, yeah, I mean, think about it. Pizza, we love pizza in college, and we're still eating pizza. When we ask kids what they want and they say pizza, you're like, oh, well, okay, sure. We'll have it again. So pizza's got to stay. Wings, I mean, you can't have Sunday football, without wings. I mean, that's nearly a staple. So, I mean, and again, it's by default. Chinese takeout is good, but I don't know that Chinese takeout, has the same deliverance, if that makes sense, after it's delivered. I have to say that, the other two, it sticks to it. They've got the special containers they bring your pizza to. The wings, same thing. So I got to say Chinese takeout's got to go.
Well, to Jason's point, you have to realize there's something about the ambiance and experience of dining in Chinatown. And if you're going to have that authentic culinary experience, and I think when I spent some time down in Chinatown, not too far from Georgetown in DC, I mean, that's the real deal right there. So, I mean, I'll go to Chinatown if I want that authentic culinary experience with the optimized ambiance. So the takeout can go, as far as I'm concerned. I think we got a
That's the first time we were 4-0.
Yeah, I think it's been a while.
Yeah.
We're 4-0. Well, here's to all the coaches on here. We add it all together. We got Jason, Christy, Gary. That'll get us 3-0. So we all can agree. Let's all go 4-0 this week. Let's do it.
There we go.
All right. And then lastly here.
Oh my God.
All right. Jordans, Kobe's, or LeBron's. Jason, you start us off.
I feel like we're in the twilight zone here, and these there's always one sticking out. Like the last one, pizza is obviously the king. Beyonce was the queen. And Jordan, Jordan's got to stay. Now, I would say LeBron, because I like the shoe better, But I just think just because of everything that happened, how 2020 started, that Kobe is up here now. So I got to say, again, kind of by default, I actually kind of liked those shoes back in the day. The LeBrons got to go.
Christy.
Well, Jason and I are 3-0 today because I agree with LeBron's. And it was kind of the same thing, but I don't own any of them. But I asked my boys and they said that was hands down. It should have been LeBron's. So in the Mitchell house, we say LeBron's got to go.
Well, the Clark closet is only full of two things. It's full of Jordan 11s, 12s, and 13s, and it's full of Kobe 6, 7, and 8. No way those two are going anywhere. This one was the easiest question we've ever had on here. 23 has to go.
and I know Langston wants to jump in on this.
Oh yeah, he does. That one right there struck a nerve when I said that.
Because Langston knows,
See.
Langston knows exactly what I'm about to say here. So he wants to jump in on this one.
I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna let Randall have his moment. I'm gonna have my moment in June. I'm gonna let Randall have his moment right now. Have your moment.
Well, I'm
See you in June.
And as Randall has his moment here, I am going to step in and concur and say that Mike's got to go. 23 has to go out of these, and here's the prevailing reason. I'm a big believer in the fact that part of educating each generation about the game is ensuring that the icons of the game who have been integral torchbearers to get us to the point where we are now realize that their times have come and gone. Mike is an integral torchbearer to this game. There's no question about that. But his time has come and gone. Mike's role is in the ownership facet now. And he has certainly done some things to distinguish himself as a philanthropist and community service, and endeared himself and the Hornets organization to the greater Charlotte community. And those are very, very wonderful things. But in terms of the shoes at this point in time in the game, the Jordans have to go. So that's what I would say. But I'd also take this opportunity to remind everybody that as we get ready to approach the inauguration of a Democratic president, that we all can remember that Republicans buy sneakers too. So, Michael, what you got? Who's got to go?
Okay. Oh my God. I'm sorry. That was funny. The last dance was crazy.
What's got to go, Micah? You're in that generation. What's got to go?
Alrighty. So I am a fan of LeBron. Like, I love LeBron. However, his earlier shoes were not the best. But now I'm seeing a lot of athletes, wearing them, and they're lighter. And the new Jordans, like Alex said, I don't like them. They're not like his shoes, his signature shoes. So I say Jordans, they got to go.
Wow. Well, let me let y'all in on a secret about Jordans. Okay. I have a few pair. I don't know, 7, 8 pair. And I would wear them on Fridays to school when I was teaching. And that was the greatest conversation starter between an adult and a child that I've ever seen. And I would tell student teachers who came under me, and I think I had 5 student teachers. And I said, if you want to build a relationship with the kids, you got to like something or understand something on their level. Mm-hmm. And then they see you as a person and not as a teacher. And I said, what did it for me was wearing Jordans. I would wear Jordans. That was an instant conversation piece with any kid that I wanted to contact with. You know, and I told my student teachers that the same thing. Get you a pair of Jordans and you'll build a relationship with kids because they'll see you as a person and not as a supervising adult. And it works. It worked, you know, and I don't know all the numbers of the different Jordan brands. I would just say, oh, I see you got some new Jordans on. And boom, I was that kid's friend, you know, and I could ask them to do anything in class because I respected their shoe game and they respected my shoe game. So that's just a little secret that kind of bonds generations are the Jordan shoes. And one more thing I would do. Back when Mike was playing, before they had charter flight, I mean, before they started riding charter and they flew commercial, I would go down to the hotel and the day of the game, and I would previous to that, I would tell my kids, I said, whoever get the highest test score, I'll get Mike to enter to autograph your shoes for you. And those kids would study so hard because they wanted the highest test score so that Michael would autograph their shoes because they knew that we were friends. And I would go down to the hotel and I was like, Mike, sign these shoes. And he would sign them. And I'd take them back to the kids, and kids who really never cared about history. That motivated them to study because they knew I would get their shoes signed for them. So that's just a little side piece on Jordans. They expand generations.
Yeah. I like the ones. I like the ones, the 11s and everything. It's just the new generation. Like, I don't know. I can't get with it. You can't wear those jeans and stuff.
Who did you get with over the holidays since we've had a few weeks off? Who did you get to talk to? Interview?
Well, I interviewed Concord Academy's very own star, Trey Benham. He's a 6'3" sharp shooter, lefty, automatic shot. I was really impressed with his game. You cannot leave him open on the three because it's going to go in. But I can tell you when I did see Concord Academy and Carmel Christian play, Carmel Christian did their homework on Trey. They had always one person on Trey and he couldn't get hot. He couldn't average his, I think he was averaging 25 points per game during that time. He couldn't get hot that game because of Carmel Christian doing their homework on defending him and making sure that he was not on that 3-point arch and range.
Did they run a boxing one on him?
Coach, I can't even remember because it was so far ago. But I think it was a boxing one. I honestly think it was. He could not get open at all. And that young guy, I forgot his name, but I think he was number 15. He did his job on the defensive end. He did his job to stop Trey, and it was amazing.
Well, let's see. Let's see what Trey is all about. Drop the mic, the music, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, everyone, and now I am here with Trey Benham. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Excited for the game. Thanks for having me.
Man, I'm so excited to see you play. So you've been on varsity since your freshman year, and each year you've gotten better, which is spectacular. So what was your mindset coming into your senior year?
You know, for my senior year, I really want to get my second ring of my season. And we've been working really hard. We're a well-rounded team this year. I feel like we're more of a family than we've ever been. And just another ring is my goal.
How is that you can lead your team in scoring, but also get them involved?
You know, I feel like my role this year is to be a scorer and a leader. So, I mean, just put 2 and 2 together, and I mean, it works out well for our team.
And do you consider yourself a sharpshooter? I've seen some of your stuff on YouTube. The shot is nice. You're lefty.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a sharpshooter?
Yeah. I think I'm one of the best shooters in the nation.
And I love to hear that, man. I love it. And what sharpshooter in the NBA do you look up to?
I'd say probably JJ Redick and or Damian Lillard. He's starting to become a sharpshooter as well. But yeah, probably JJ Redick.
All right, man. So good luck this season. I'll be watching. And yeah,
I appreciate
thank you
it so much. Thanks for having me.
Well, Michael, that's a good job. What I like about Trey is he's not a catch and shoot guy all the time. Sometimes you can run those 3-point shooters off the line. It looks like he can shoot off the dribble. So his game is pretty diversified. Now, I also noticed taking those threes, he was more in the foot behind the line. And a lot of 3-point shooters, toes on, right up against the line. And he was behind it a pretty good bit. So he looks like he has a bright future ahead of him.
He has a sniper. He has a sniper on him. And I can't wait to see how his game is going to escalate even in college for sure.
All right. Well, Alex, take us to the boys' side of the preseason rankings. See what's going on that side.
Well, we see a lot of familiar faces for sure, and certainly makes sense as we begin the infusion of NCHSAA competition this week. I don't think there's a whole lot of conversation in terms of the appropriateness of North Mecklenburg's lofty position. I think we can agree on that. And we see a few other schools that are infused in their North Mecklenburg with 2 and have Kent at 9. 2 conference rivals will be very, very strong there. So let's get the guru, Mr. Rick Lewis, to get us going. If you want to start off at the 4A level and go in whatever direction you want, we'll hit on a number of classifications right here. But let's go 4A with North Meck and Vance to get going.
Well, first of all, you look at the poll that the Charlotte Observer has. 4 out of the top 10 teams are in the NCISA 4A division. So you have Carmel number 1, and they probably have the strongest odds of winning the state championship at the private school level. They have 3 Division I prospects. They have Ben Burnham, who's going to Winthrop, Cade Tyson, who's developing into a high major player, and they also have Justin Taylor. And then they have the perfect glue guy in Glenn Bynum. So Coach Joe Badgett really does have a nice nucleus of players at Carmel. I think they will be the heads-on favorite to win the 4A. Now, in the 4A, the strongest competition is going to be from the teams that's in the top 10. You have Cannon, who has Jarvis Moss, DJ Nix. Another guy that I like a lot, who's also a glue guy who doesn't get enough credit, is Elijah Ormiston. And they have Karan Boyd, and then also Christian Reed has been out with injuries during the course of the season. They're 13 and I think 13 and 4 right now, but they played a very difficult schedule. And naturally, anytime you're going to compete for a state championship, you're going to have to play probably Greensboro Day. Freddie Johnson is one of the best coaches of all time. He has one of the best sophomores in the state in Jaden Young, and has one of the best shooters in the state in Michael Zayoni. And they're going to be awfully tough to beat. Now, they're 10 and 4. But they lost 2 games at the Beach Ball Classic by 1 point at the last second. But they played a very difficult schedule there. Those are the strongest challenges. You also have Charlotte Christian. I think Sean Brown has done a remarkable job over there. They haven't had the opportunity to play as many games. So I think that might come into play when they start playing some of the teams within their conference. But don't count out, and you're going to think this is probably far-fetched, but my sleeper team from all these is going to be Covenant Day. Now, I know they're only 4 and 3 right now, but Covenant Day has sort of had some injuries early on. They've been hit hard by COVID on 2 shutdowns. They've had to quarantine. But Aiden Holloway is one of the best guards in the state, and he has the ability, when you get to the playoff time, you have that one person who can basically take that team and carry them on their shoulders and play for a state championship. They will be my sleeper team. And I know everybody's going to say, hey, they're 4 and 3. They don't have an impressive record right now. But once they start playing and get through the season and not have so many shutdowns and quarantines, I think they could be a team to really watch out for. Now, going into the 3A, and we haven't really talked much about this team. We just interviewed Trey Benham But Concord Academy is sitting here with a 10-4 record, and they went down to Florida. They won the tournament down there. They've been in almost every event we've had. They have played a brutal schedule. I have to give credit to Frank Canagori. He has a mindset, and the attitude is we'll play anybody, anytime, any place. And he doesn't mind playing the non-association teams. A lot of people won't play the combines, the Liberty Heights, the Bull City Durham, or Winston-Salem Christian. You go to a Concord Academy, they don't back down from anyone. They love the opportunity to play those teams, and they're led by Trey Benham, Logan Three, who transferred from South Point, who's also a very tremendous backcourt player. So I think we need to give Concord Academy some credit. They could win the 3A and repeat as state champions, and no one's talking about Concord Academy. At the 2A level, which is in our top 10, you have the Burlington School. They have a very young, dynamic coach in Ryan Bernardi. He has two outstanding players. He has Jamari Thomas, who's one of the toughest point guards in the state. He's going to UNC Wilmington. And then they have 6'10" Coel Mating, who's going to Howard. And he's one of these young men that had an opportunity to go to a high major school, but instead he picked to go into an HBCU school, which give him credit for that. Two other schools that are in the area, in the Charlotte area, that could compete for the state championship, and that's Westminster Catawba. Langston's friend and my friend Ed Addy does a remarkable job there. He has one of the top freshmen in the country, and Joshine Felton, and they have another player that's going to be probably on the radar for a lot of recruiting colleges, and that's MJ Collins. And another coach and another team that I want to give hats off to, and that's Northside Christian, Erasco Hatchet. They're sitting at 13-4. A lot of their losses have come to the top-ranked teams and also some of the non-association teams. So give them credit. They don't back down from playing some of the tougher teams. They're led by Wesley Tubbs, one of the better players in the state for his class, and Glenn Hubbard, which is a tremendous speedy point guard in the senior class. So they have a chance to win the 2A in North Carolina. And we're going to move down to the 1A. And again, two teams that we really need to start talking about. Number one is Victory Christian. Victory Christian has really reloaded with some tremendous talent. They have two high major prospects, and I think we talked about them the last time we had the show. Luis Duarte, 6'6" point guard who has high major offers. They also have another guy by the name of Randy Ovali, who's a high major player. They have DeMar Anderson, who is probably going to be a Division I prospect. They have the Simpkin twins, and they just got a new player that came in, 6'9", who already has mid to high major offers, and that's Damian Reyes. So Victory Christian is really building up very quietly under the radar. No one's been talking about them, but they're building a very nice championship caliber team over at Victory. And the other team at the 1A, and Josh Cooley has done a tremendous job at United Faith. And they have a guy there. I know, Randall, you and I both love this young man. He played at Myers Park last year. Xavier McKelvey. He has been phenomenal for them. And I think those are some of the local teams that can probably compete for a state championship in the NCISAA level. Now, if we go to the, excuse me, the public school level, I think everybody can agree North Mech is the team to beat. They're absolutely loaded. They got Davison Siney, Chris Ford, Jeremy Gregory, who's absolutely tremendous, Davion Cunningham. They have Jordan Crawford, and they have a slew of guards. They're 10 deep. So you look at North Mech, they should be the hands-on favorite to win it. The competition for 4A outside the Raleigh area will come from some other teams from Charlotte. I do think Audrey Cale has an opportunity to be very good this year. They have Evan Smith, 6'3" point guard, very tremendous there. Peyton Gerald. They got the transfers in Elijah Gray, Elijah Green. Also, they got Noah Carter from Charlotte Country Day, and they also have Brandon Nelson. So they're building a nice little team over at Audrey Cale, and we know how good a coach Mike Kraft is.
Coach, if I could jump in for 1 second off of something you just said, given we have Jason here with us right now with a firsthand perspective on North Mecklenburg. I think we all can agree that the IMAC is hands down the toughest NCHSAA conference year in and year out. So, Coach, you have that firsthand perspective. You've been the hunter and you've been the hunted. So, where do things stand? I mean, you got to line up with them. So, talk to us.
Well, I was just watching film of them. Oh wait, no, I haven't because we haven't seen them yet. Where we've seen them, it's not the same as Tuesday and Friday nights with scouting reports, and that's one of the things that people were talking about earlier. Is we go into these games, there's no scouting report. I'm going into a game Wednesday night. I've already seen these guys play, and I've already got a scouting report. That's what makes this very interesting. Now, I'm a little surprised because I think, and maybe Alex is going to do a better job of this, is giving some love to the East. Raleigh Millbrook can match up with that front line and probably is bigger than North Meck.
Not this year.
Don't they have the two bigs?
No. Will Felton transferred to Hargrave, Arizona State signee who transferred to Hargrave, and we could discuss. I think all of you probably know where I stand on the fact that he signed with Hargrave on September 20th, yet he transferred out of Millbrook High School. I think everyone knows where I stand about that. Not good at all.
Yeah, but they would have been good, and they got the kid from Heritage, didn't they?
Yes, Redford Dunton. Who's more of a he's a 6'7", but he's more of a
guard.
He's more of a wing type.
Yeah.
In terms of patrolling the pivot like that, not exactly the same. And obviously, their best player, Eric Vanderheiden, the 6'9" shooting guard, who I liken to being a matchup problem in the mold of Mike Dunleavy Jr. He's exceptional, but he's not a pivot man.
Not a post guy, yeah.
So Millbrook actually, they're certainly not a small team, but in terms of that interior presence, they're still
match up with them.
Compliment.
And the other part about it is going to be interesting is that number one, you got Vance in there, but a team that didn't make it in there is West Charlotte, who returns, a lot of starters, and they had a lot of young talent, point guard included, and the kid that was a 6'9" freshman on that varsity team. They're going to be a load, and the big thing is going to be, we've talked about the size, but we all know, or most of us know, that this is a guards game, and you got to have guards, and they lost two really good guards. Now I put them at the top because that's North Meck, and you want to beat the champs, you got to beat the champs. But I'm gonna say that Vance and West Charlotte, I would give West Charlotte a little bit of an edge over even Vance because they lost two really good guards. Now they were young guards, but Trey and the other kid, and Jalen was more of I think down the line guy, and Trey was an impact player last year for them. Automatic all conference player, and then Sanford we talked about enough on this show. He's going to be a load, and then the freshman is going to be a pretty big kid in the paint. So those two match up with each other well in the interior, but. West Charlotte's guards, man, that's going to be interesting. How they match up with North. They don't have the experience size with Ford, and Jeremy's gotten a lot better, and Gregory with his hands. But I'll tell you that whoever comes out of this league is going to be. You're going to have, like we were talking about earlier, you're going to have a team sitting at home that's pretty darn good.
Well, Coach, and even in your conference, Lake Norman is ranked 7th, and they're a very tough team. They're
Norman? Lake Norman?
Yes.
Yeah. They're 7th?
They're
Are we 8th? We 8th then?
No, I thought y'all were before that.
Hey, we're all 0-0, baby. There will be 4 teams
on
Wednesday. We're 0-0. I know that.
All I know is that when I saw Group's face light up like a Christmas tree when we mentioned North Meck, I just can't wait. When we get to see Huff and North Meck, I hope that we're able to be in the gym for that one because I know he's going to have his team prepared and ready to go. And I know he's chomping at the bit. I could just tell every time we talk about them, I just see that look in his eyes. He wants some get back from last year, and I love it.
Well, let's bring all that together, what everyone has said. That we're in a situation here where, once again, the 14 games, it's a sprint. It's not a marathon. So you take a team like a North Mecklenburg, which has the pieces on paper, no doubt about that. And like you said, we're probably going to have a quality team sitting at home if you're off one night or 2 nights. And then we hope we don't have quarantine factors or anything like that. But the sprint factor of this, and Rick, if you want to start us off, of benefits, challenges, does it benefit someone like a North Mech, or does it challenge them, or is it going to be harder for teams who don't have those bona fide proven pieces? What are the implications of the 14-game sprint?
I think it's going to depend on which team develops the best chemistry early on. I think chemistry is going to be the key. You're going to have some teams, and for example, if you look on paper, Huff doesn't have the D1 players that North Mech has, but every year, they give them a really good game. I mean, and they could have easily beat them several times last year. You look at a team like Lake Norman, who's ranked lower in the conference, but there's a situation where the sum is greater than the part, because they got a lot of guys that are all D2, D3s, but those guys have been playing together for a long period of time. And if they have the good chemistry, and like you said earlier, Randall, turnovers is going to be the key. I think turnovers, chemistry is going to determine, because all these teams are going to be thrown into the fire right away. There's no preseason conference games. You're thrown in, like, for example, usually these games would be, we've had 2 months of preseason games up until the conference. You don't have that. Now you're going into this week. You got some heavy hitting matchups up front. Like you said, West Charlotte versus North Mech, and then you have Aldrich Hill going against South Mech. Those are going to be playoff implications and teams that will compete for the championship.
Well, let's go ahead and move along with what Rick just said about right there. Games we got to watch for this week, and those are the 2 big ones. We'll go in chronological order. I know a lot of people don't know a lot about what could be a very good South Mecklenburg team, and then we'll go to the big one at the end of the week. So Randall, get us started. Aldrich Hill, South Mech, and then let's go to West Charlotte, North Mech. Everyone wants to see it.
Aldrich Hill, South Mech is going to be extremely interesting, because you have a bunch of new faces at Aldrich Hill. Obviously, we've talked about Mike Kraft and the great job that he does year in and year out. But obviously, in a shortened season, when you only have 14 games, and now you're trying to get all these new guys acclimated. You're trying to get Elijah Green acclimated. You're trying to get, Noah Carver back acclimated to how you do things. That's the challenge that's going to be in Mike Kraft's, corner all season long, is just figuring out how to get everybody on the same page and get them going. For South Mech, obviously, you have a new coach over there. Joseph Ferrante in the middle is a monster. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see how they adjust to having a new coach. How is Bishop Boswell and some of those other young freshmen gonna adjust? West Charlotte, North Mech is very interesting for exactly the reason that Coach Rick mentioned earlier. West Charlotte, they had some young guards. They got some experience last year in a shortened season. If I have to choose front court or backcourt to have experience, I'd rather have an experienced backcourt this year. And I love Chris Ford and I love Jeremy Gregory. It will be very interesting to see how that young backcourt for North is going to do. Obviously, they're kids that have played, their JV team year in and year out is super competitive. But as everybody on this panel knows, there's a big difference between playing JV basketball and playing varsity basketball. And, how it will a young backcourt at North Mech that, hasn't necessarily been here before. These guys, they were Tristan and Traden led last year, and they played a ton of minutes, as well as Shaman, but now you're going to have a bunch of guys that didn't have to play a bunch of minutes, and they're going to have to play a bunch of minutes. And so we're going to find out right away how good that backcourt for North Mech is, and that's going to tell us a lot about how this 14-game season is going to go.
Randall, I want to mention one other player for West Charlotte who I think is probably one of the most improved players that I've seen over the summer. This young man is a worker, and that's Chance Morrow. He had a phenomenal summer, and you'll see that he should see his rankings and his recruitment should pick up. But he's had a tremendous year, improved a lot. Now, as far as North Mech, as far as the backcourt, I think Coach Lewis will rely basically starting off with his senior leadership with Tony Waters and also Josh McClary, and bring in the other guys a little bit slower. So I do think they still have the experience in the backcourt.
No, Tony obviously played a lot for them last year, so that's definitely to be seen. I was thinking more of when you get to that 6, 7, 8. When you get to that bench and those guys, how are they going to react to that moment? Like I said, they're going to find out right away because right out the gate you got West Charlotte.
Jason, you want to wrap up this perspective on these games for us?
Yeah, they look good. I just wish I could see them, but I got work to do. Myers Park game would be interesting. I think somebody said earlier that Butler's with Rocky River and Butler. That's going to be an interesting game because Kirby was not only the connections there. Kirby was at Butler, so he's going back to play where he was. That'll be interesting as well. But I mean, you like I said before, you at this point, we're looking at. We've already seen these guys. We've scouted them. We've been to playing our games on Wednesday. So on a Tuesday we go see Audrey Kell in West Charlotte, or we see West Mech in West Charlotte. Those non-conference games, so we can start getting our matchups. You don't have that this year. Your only basis, I guess, or scouting is summer basketball or some of the AAU stuff that was going on. And like I said before, there's a world of difference. Like Randall said, there's a world of difference from JV to varsity. There's a world of difference between playing a 9 o'clock game and knowing you got a 1 o'clock game, and then playing a 7 or 8 o'clock game at night. It's one and done. You better bring it to the table, Wednesday night, because like we said, it's a sprint. We don't have a lot of. I told my guys I don't have a lot of patience. Everybody's gonna be on a short leash, but it goes back to, I think it's gonna be good. Is I got some seniors, and that plays a big role, I think, because they know what we want to do, and we didn't get a lot to change. If we wanted to change some stuff, which we thought about doing, we would have done that in the summertime at team camp. That's gone. So it'll be interesting.
I think we didn't, Coach mentioned briefly the Myers Park Rocky River game, and it falls into the same thing that we've been mentioning. The kids at Myers Park are going to have to grow up extremely fast, because right out of the gate, you're having Duke Thomas walk into your building, and he's going to be trying to get 30. And Kirby's going to have Rocky River ready to go. They got a great first week. I mean, you go Butler, Myers Park right out the gate. Those kids are going to be ready to go. So, obviously, Myers Park is young. Elijah Strong was good for them last year. But
we got that Rocky River team in the first round last year, and we jumped on them. And the kind of guys got a little complacent, but man, they came back. I think it ended up, they hit a 3 at the end. It was a 2-possession game. They hit a 3 to make it a 1-point game. But that kid's good. And like you said, you lost a kid. I think McKelvey went to
United Faith.
And there's been a lot of shuffling and stuff. So that's a good team. And not only that, they've had a lot of coaches over the last few years. And for them to compete like that, I mean, they're gonna have a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Coach, one more thing I think is going to be interesting in this shortened season. And it's which players, which teams bring their own energy. Because when you think about a North Mech and a West Charlotte matchup, it usually was standing room only, and it was sold out at 4 o'clock, and they were playing in front of a packed house. Now, a lot of these players are going to be playing in empty gyms with 25 or less. So I think that's going to be very interesting, the psyche on a lot of these players. Sometimes players get sort of hyped up because of the crowd. They're going to have to create their own energy.
And I'll chime in on that. I like the point that Rick just made, and I want to connect that to what we can look for in the Greater Triangle area this week. Now, while a particular matchup doesn't stand out, what I would say is this is how I'm approaching the start of this season. Bringing your own energy, I want to give you 3 teams that you want to watch for 3 reasons, and take your pick. Millbrook, obviously. Eric Vanderheiden, who is a matchup nightmare in the mold of Mike Dunleavy Jr., as he was at Duke, a 6'9" wing player who's an absolute sharpshooter, an excellent passer, runs the floor well. So watching him, or you can go Heritage with Lucas Taylor, the 6'6" Clemson signee, or you can go Panther Creek with Dalen Berry, the 6'4" Charlotte signee. And I mentioned those three teams. Take your pick. Go watch whoever you want. Well, you can't go watch, but let's pay attention to those three teams because, as Rick said, I want to see who comes out as the aggressor. Vanderheiden, Berry, Taylor. I want to see them be the aggressors from day one. That's going to make the difference in this sprint of a season, and that can show if players at that level are going to make a difference in what will be this sprint we have discussed. So that's what I would say. Any of those three teams, who will be the aggressor from that?
I have a question for Randall and Alex. In 4A basketball, is the state champion coming from the eastern half of the state or the western half of the state?
West, done deal. Forget it. Over.
You won't even defend your home turf, man. What do you think, Randall?
Everybody on this team knows that I speak the truth.
I was all prepared for him to put on his Eastern.
I know, right?
He just shocked me. I'm almost speechless. I mean, he's right. I'm not. He's obviously right, but it was a lot easier than I expected it to be. That kid's coming out of the West.
I'm going to go on. I'll go on record right now, and we have to put conditions on this season. If everybody stays healthy,
yes,
which we want for everybody, that's independent of success.
Absolutely.
Everybody stays healthy. If
Coach Groove has a sleeper Eastern team out there. Coach, what you got?
The Pinecrest, North Meck was going to play Lumberton.
Yeah.
And Lumberton squeaked by Pinecrest. They had one of the worst games of the year. That's fact. Because they beat them twice in the league. And that was a pretty good league. And we played Panther Creek last year. And Dalen was hurt. And that's why we mopped him up pretty good. But Pinecrest point guard is legitimate. And they run a good system. They don't have the interior now. But if they make shots, basketball is about making shots, people. If you make shots, that interior
you can't. You guys made a good point. If North Meck's guards can get the ball to their bigs,
that's a key.
It's going to be a wrap.
But, North Meck, their best guard was the best guard on anybody they played on. Would have been the best guard on that. That's tough.
Coach Lewis, same question. Eastern or Western 4A state champion? Which one?
I'm going to go with North Meck, and my sleeper team would be Audrey Kell.
Audrey Kell. Mike Kraft has shown he's proven if he gets on stage, he can get you there. That was one of the best state championship games I've ever seen, actually, that Audrey Kell state final. All right, Gary, you ready, man?
Let's drop it. Well, guys, we just concluded bowl season and a lot of talk around here because of the Tar Heels making it to a major bowl was about players opting out. And so it's a two-part question here, this first debate we have. First of all, is the bowl system obsolete? And then secondly, are you okay with players that have NFL potential opting out of these basically glorified exhibition games, these bowl games? Rick, we'll start with you.
Well, I don't think the bowls are obsolete. There's too much money involved in it at the collegiate level, so they're not going to get away with the bowl system. But as far as the players opting out, I wish they wouldn't. That's just a personal preference, but I understand the reason why they do. Like last night, I was watching UNC in the Orange Bowl. I was pulling for UNC to win, but it didn't matter to me whether the top players opted out or not. I was still pulling for them. And I'm sure the same scenario is going to happen to every team that's playing in a bowl. So I don't know whether it hurts one team more than the other.
Alex?
As for the bowls being obsolete, I'll leave it to the words that Rick just used. We have no other reason to discuss why the bowls are not obsolete. Rick said it very well, so I won't even address that. As for student athletes opting out of bowl games, I think it's an absolute disgrace. And I'll put it in this context right here. I don't think Jason Groove would have been real happy with Jeremy Ingram and Titus Robinson opting out of summer team camp in the summer of 2007 before that state championship season. And I want to put it in this context as well. They go back to football season, which actually will follow basketball season this year, and we talk about tradition. One of the guests on when we were in football season of this program, Brian Till, the Richmond County coach, there is a long-standing tradition at Richmond County called the Law of the Raider, and it's a poem. And I just want to say the last two words to explain what the issue is here. The last two words of the Law of the Raider, and I quote, "For the strength of the team is the player, and the strength of the player is the team," unquote. It works both ways. If you're going to opt out of the bowl game, then opt out of the whole season. There wouldn't be a 2007-2008 state championship trophy at East Mecklenburg High School if Jeremy Ingram and Titus Robinson had opted out of summer team camp. And we're not going to set that precedent, whether we're talking team camp, whether we're talking regular season, whether we're talking postseason, whether we're talking bowl game. You're in or you're out. And if you're going to opt out, get out before the first day.
Jason.
I really can't argue with that. I mean, now, only thing I would say is this year, I'm going to give you a pass this year because the sacrifices that you make, and I'm talking COVID related, not necessarily just to increase your or you're worried about getting injured, because that's it. You dedication and commitment. And the other one I would add is the loyalty. So, I don't think they're obsolete. The money is going to be there, like we talked about before, but I think that they've done a disservice. They're lessened. The money is lessened because you got the 3 games. The Final Four in football is kind of now where everybody's at. If I'm not in that, I think the players' mentality is if I'm not playing in that game, then I don't really care.
Exactly.
Randall?
100%. That's exactly what it is, Coach Groove. If I'm not playing, if I'm not one of the Final Four teams, I'm not playing. And as a Michigan fan, Michigan hasn't played in a meaningful bowl game in forever. And they have guys that opt out, and I've kind of just gotten used to it. And I know Alex said, opt out of the whole season. Unfortunately, we had that happen this year too. So I don't necessarily want to make that a trend, but I do, I don't agree with it, but I get it. If you feel like you're just playing an exhibition game and you're a first or second rounder and you want to, protect your draft stock, I understand.
We're seeing a manifestation of that though at the upper levels. The NFL with the Washington football team. And Booger McFarland got some heat for saying some stuff. And I kind of had to agree with him. It's a lot of the players today. I mean, it's $1 billion industry, and a lot of the players today, are worried about what they can get from it rather than what they can get back to the team. And that Raider slogan hits home.
Well, guys, somebody who's familiar to all of us being here in Charlotte is Christian McCaffrey. He's the first that started this. It didn't hurt his draft status. NFL general managers will tell you off the record, they don't care about the bowl games. They go to enough practices. You got 11, 10 game schedule to establish your value. One game rarely changes what they think of you. You look at somebody like De'Aaron King, who tore his ACL. Now, he was planning on coming back, but instead of becoming a better football player, now he's got to spend his whole offseason rehabbing his knee instead of becoming a better quarterback. And I'm on the side of expanding the playoffs to include the bowl games. I think that's something that Mac Brown has advocated. It's still a bowl game, but, it leads to another bowl game, a bigger bowl until you get to the championship. I think you'll find that none of the schools that were playing in the Final Four had anybody opt out because they were playing for something.
Exactly.
In those games where, you know, nobody talked about it because Georgia won, but they had 9 players opt out. And all of them because they got an NFL draft ranking, and the NFL said we don't need to see anymore. You know, so I understand the loyalty, but if you want the players to stop dropping out, you got to make the bowl games mean something to the players. We know it means something to the schools. It means millions of dollars. You know, it means branding. That's why they go to the bowl, so they get that national spotlight, you know. But I think you have to also look at it in the kids' best interest long term. Now, something else that you brought up about these players at the high school level, because of COVID, and that's what we assume, but because of COVID, a lot of players have transferred from public schools to private schools. Is that gap in competition closed between public and private schools because of all these transfers, or even are the private schools ahead now? Randall?
Oh yeah, the private schools are way ahead. That gap has gotten drastically bigger over this COVID season. Unfortunately, we had a lot of people who got scared and they didn't know if they were going to have a public school season. And since they didn't know, they transferred. In some cases, some kids knew that it was going to hurt their recruiting, and they were like, I'd rather transfer and reclass. It's a weird situation, but with so many of the top players just in Mecklenburg County leaving to go to other private schools, it's going to hurt. Not to say that it won't still be competitive, but I don't think the level of play is going to be not nearly as high as it would have been if everybody was still where they were supposed to be.
Well, Rick, you're the guru of all those high school prospects. Do you see this as being long term, and do you think the gap has closed, or what's your opinion?
Well, I think this year was the exception rather than the norm, because, and I think the point was made by Randall that a lot of these players was fearful that there wasn't going to be a high school season at the public school level. So a lot of those players did opt out and transfer to a private school because the private schools were playing much earlier. They've been playing since November, whereas on the public school side, you're not playing until January. And there was even the thought process once January would get here that they may even, if COVID didn't improve, and there's still that talk that you may not even have a complete season. So a lot of the players that are at the private, they've gotten, if you look at the records on some of these, some of them are 13-4, 10-4. Well, they've already played basically a full season compared to the public school side. Now, that being said, let's not forget, there's also transfers from private schools to public. And Audrey Kell's a perfect example. They got, Elijah Gray from a private to a public. They also got Noah Carver going from a private to a public. So there are situations where kids go from private to public. But I do think with the COVID situation this year, I do think it sort of magnified it to some degree. But if you look at it on the grand scheme of things, if you look at the top teams in the state of North Carolina at the public school level, whether it's a North Meck or Millbrook, those type of teams, they can play, in my opinion, with any of the private school teams out there. I just wish we could get a situation where the public schools could play some of the private schools and have the opportunity to compete with them. And if they were able to do so and compete with them, they might be able to use that logic to say, why do you have to go to a private school when you can play at a public school and have the same type of recognition?
Jason, what do you think about the competition gap?
No, I think it's quality over quantity. I don't care how many games the private schools already play. We're going to play quality games, 14 of them. And that's what we've been building up to. I think that, I don't see players are going to transfer. I don't know if it's players or parents or, everybody's looking for the crystal apple, but I'd say that, or the crystal ball and whatever they're trying to get out of it. But I think that it's harder in our league. Like I think Rick Lewis said earlier, our team was at 7th, Lake Norman. A pretty good private school is not going to go there on a Tuesday night and clean house because those kids over there playing for that community. And that's what I like about where I'm at. It's a community. And it's not a kid from over here. It's not a kid from the south side of Charlotte. It's not a kid from the west side of Charlotte. It's not a kid from, Union County on one team. It's a community. And I think that's what, that's why I don't see that gap. I think that day in and day out, the quality of the public schools in Charlotte, from top to bottom, is still there. You'll have a couple of players that leave. You also got to wonder why they leave. Is there a kid that was a freshman or sophomore that was going to come and take their time or minutes? And so rather than be the backup 2 guard at that school, they want to go to a private school where they're promised 25 shots a game or whatever it is that happens. So I don't think there's a big gap between that. I think this was here as an anomaly in terms of, players transferring. And I don't blame anybody that does that because they didn't know they were going to play. But I know we got, like I said, 14 games, and our kids are excited, and the kids, the Hopewell kids, we're going to be playing Wednesday night. They're excited.
And to say one thing on top of what you said there, Coach, is at the public school level. Now we can't say it this year because of COVID, but at the public school level, the rivalries that you do have between the communities, like we talked about, whether it's a West Charlotte versus North Mech, whoever it could be, standing room only. You usually don't see those type of crowds at a private school game.
Alex?
This is an absolute disgrace. I'm infuriated by the whole thing. I think it's sickening all the way around. And here's the issue I have with this right here. People are exploiting the seriousness of this pandemic, a world health crisis, to create circumstances when you are further endangering the plight of your children by relocating them to another unfamiliar circumstance, all in the name of basketball or any other sport. You don't have the full season. This is not a normal year. Are you really that uninvested in the holistic, formative, educational experience in which you have hopefully placed your children in a certain school to receive all for one basketball season? Are you going to take your child out of that context, which has been a holistically formative and educational context for your child, in the name of a season that's not guaranteed to happen? I know I'm a traditionalist. We all know that. But there's a value that I find in the fact that the high school I attended on day one of my 9th grade year is the same school at which I attended every school day for 8 consecutive semesters or 4 years, completed the same course of study, and received a diploma from that school 4 years later when it was said and done. There wasn't a basketball team or any sport or anything that was going to make me make a shift with the hope of one season that's not even guaranteed. That is an insult to the educators at either side. If you're going public to private, private to public, whatever, you really weren't invested in the educational experience for your child if you're going to do something like that. And I question the commitment to optimizing safety parameters and constraints. You're going to take your child out of a situation, put them in that new context, new people, new situation. I mean, you don't know what's going on. Never mind the educational piece of it. I think it's an absolute disgrace. But as for the public-private relationship, I don't buy the argument whatsoever. As for the publics and the privates lining up and play each other, NCHSAA and NCISAA, if the 8 semester rule is in play, then we can talk about that. Other than that, these non-NCISAA schools, if the NCHSAA schools will not play them, I don't blame them one bit. And here's why. I'm not lining up against someone who's not bound by an 8 semester rule or by an age rule.
Or boundaries.
Or boundaries of any kind. You could be rolling out there with 20-year-olds. I don't know who you have. I know people think that might be an extreme, but if you're not bound by the on or after August 1st rule for 19 years old in a given, I don't know who you're putting out there against my kids. Shucks. If I want my kids to get abused or manhandled by men, then we can go with my 15 and 16 and 17-year-olds we can go to Rucker Park in New York and go against 30-year-olds. It is what it is. If you don't have rules on paper, I'm not lining up against you. So I think it's an apples to oranges comparison to evaluate the quality of one or the other when we're not playing with the same rules.
Well, I think most of the part, the NCISA are governed by the same rules, same guidelines. And what's to stop a kid from reclassing in the 7th and 8th grade and going to a public school and being a year older there? I mean, it's the same difference. You're just splitting hairs.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you can't sit there and criticize the private schools when they're in a lot of them in the Charlotte area. They don't allow reclass kids.
The CISAA schools, I believe that's one of the only NCISAA conferences that has the 8 semester rule. And I think we all can notice the drop off in CISAA competition for NCISAA state championships at the highest level. A CISAA school hadn't won a state championship. I think Cannon might be CISAA, but Providence Day back in 2016. But what I am talking about here is the reclassifications that we're seeing are not in 7th or 8th grade. I think we all know that happens in public school. You reclass before 9th grade, that's your business. We can't do anything about that.
That's what the 19 is, though. That stops that.
Exactly.
Or at least inhibits it.
You do it before 9th grade, that's your business. But the reclassifications we're seeing in terms of would-be 11th graders going back to 10 or would-be 12th graders going back to 11, that unlevels the playing field right there.
Okay, guys. Well, we've seen an uptick in COVID statistics. I feel like I'm doing the football show again because this was always my segment they call gloom and doom. But with the uptick in COVID statistics, should the NCAA consider pushing back March Madness and the basketball schedule? What do you think? Randall, we'll go with you first.
I mean, you've already started, so I don't really see a spot where you can just stop everybody right now and say, hey, guys, we're going to take a couple months off and then try to do it again. I think, unfortunately, we have a lot of games that are being postponed, and, it just happens. I know what happened this week with Duke and Florida State. Duke's down there ready for a game, and they got to fly back the next day because the game got postponed. It's just something that we're dealing with right now. I don't think you can pause the season and try to, wait. I just don't think it happens. I think you just got to try to fight through as best as possible. And hopefully, with the vaccine, things start to clear up a little bit and we can get to March Madness and definitely have a tournament and an eventual NCAA champion.
Rick?
I would agree with Randall. Once we've already started, I don't think you can stop midway through the season. I do think they'll probably have to have a situation where I think on the collegiate level, they're allowed 26 regular season games. It may be a situation where they limit, you might only end up with 18 to 20 games during the course of the season, and then hopefully get March Madness playing on time. The thing about that is you're going to have some wiggle room there in case you do have like a Final Four, and if one team or, a player off one team gets, tested, he's positive for COVID, that team gets disqualified, or do they push it off and delay it to another week? Those are the questions that, I would like to see answered.
Jason?
Yeah, I don't think you can push it back now. I mean, it's you got to go. But this is predictable, though. I mean, we knew that, we were going to be in holiday seasons. We knew the numbers were going to go up. So, I mean, I think it's you got to do what you got to do. And then if we miss games, I think they need to make a couple rules or whatever in terms of the numbers. I know Ohio State got into that Final Four, and looks like Indiana football team was the second best team in the nation because they gave Ohio State a good run, and then they changed the rules. They said you got to have X number of games, but because it's Ohio State, they gave them a championship. So what I think we need to do if we're going to do something is we need to stick to it. I mean, that's it. Stick to it. Don't do it or do it. I mean, if if all of them wanted to go, I mean, you can't beat Mike Krzyzewski and say, whoa, we got a couple losses and we got this kid getting tested and this kid might be positive. We got to step back. Now, you can't do that. You shouldn't have started. If you wanted to opt out, then you opt out at the beginning because you kind of have common sense knows that, numbers aren't going to go up. And we're going to see in 2 weeks, guys, numbers go up again because people are visiting family members and whatnot. So,
yes, yeah.
Airports
are crazy right now. Gary, I know it's a basketball show, man, but I got to do this to you, man. We got to put up my favorite segment of Talking Preps. You know what it is. Here we go. How about them with Gary?
I'm happy that I don't have to look at that trash anymore this season. When you bring in a new head coach, he's supposed to bring in added value, and I think the value went down in Dallas. I know we had a lot of injuries, the offensive line, the quarterback, but some of the decisions, awful. And so I'm happy it's over. Hopefully we can get a good draft pick, but I don't have to fuss and cuss at TV anymore this season. The Panthers are done. Cowboys are done. I don't have a dog in the fight. I can just enjoy the next 4 weeks of postseason football. So,
hey, I got some space on my Colts bandwagon. We almost had a division.
Well, you all Indy all the time, man. You get high school, college, pro, all Indy all the time. Coach Lewis, before we get out of here, 3 tips for parents with recruiting right now in the pandemic. What would you tell parents? 3 things they should be doing for their kids right now in the pandemic.
As far as recruiting is concerned?
Recruiting. What if I'm a parent and I got a 15, 16, 17-year-old and I'm trying to go to college, the NCAA is granted an extra year. What in the world do I do?
Well, wear a mask. Number one. I mean, seriously. I'm being serious. If I'm a parent, the kids are going to be playing, in games. I would just say, hey, just continue to do what you're doing. Everything's going to work out in the end. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If you're going to get recruited, I think the hard part is there's not a do-over at the high school level. The colleges this year is a do-over, so almost everybody who's playing this year has a free year. So it's going to limit the number of scholarships that will be available next year. That puts a lot of players at a big dilemma. And with the shortened season, it's just really tough for these young. I think it's going to be very important for players to get on the right travel ball team during the off season, get in the right events, be seen as much as possible, and just continue to work hard.
All right, there's your what did Jay-Z say? $1 million worth of game for $9.99. Is that what he said, Randall?
That is exactly what he said.
Yeah, there you go. Alex, it's time for Alex's 2 cents. You have 2 minutes for 2 cents.
I had my mask on, as Coach told us to do.
Good. All you.
ACC men's basketball coaches had a game dress code. This previous dress code included business attire. A suit or sport coat and trousers, collared dress shirt, dress socks, and dress shoes were standard. Sadly, recent years included the inappropriate exclusion of neckties. This dress code's existence was affirmed by a vote. Specifically, these coaches felt compelled to vote for an alternative dress code, including wearing polo shirts during this 2020-21 season's games. Seeing coaches in sneakers without cause or charity advocacy and even shorts have become commonplace. This absolute disgrace is beyond insulting to the game and coaching profession. Most of these coaches purport to fill dual roles as television actors and multi-million-dollar corporation CEOs before even espousing to be educators or teachers. Very simply, they wanted a break from upholding and proliferating respect for their professions and thus the greater game during these times. If these coaches purport to fill the aforementioned roles in the designated order, then they must look the part independent of whom and or however many people are watching. High and middle schools are completely different and or separate situations. The very best high and middle school coaches espouse first and foremost to be educators or teachers. These educators distinguish themselves from college coaches in their endeavors, prevailing missions, and purposes. When practiced most authentically with optimized efficacy, teaching is coaching and coaching is teaching. They are one and the same. High and middle schools, educator coaches thus reinforce their laudable profession's manifold vitalities in forming young people through wardrobing consistency transcending the traditional school day. Education-based athletics, courts, and fields, when used most appropriately, are extensions of the school day traditional classrooms. Thus, courts and fields, too, are integral learning environments for cultivating imperative contributions by students and educators within a holistic school community. Looking professional has different meanings for coaches in college versus high and middle school basketball contexts. May all coaches embrace looking professional as an integral facet of being professional. Thank you.
Okay, so let me ask this question. So you watched the Carolina Notre Dame game yesterday. Roy had on a sweater. Bray had on shorts. You just weren't cool with that, right?
They both were absolute disgraces. And I'm going to say something else.
Yeah.
UNC beating Notre Dame by 1 point yesterday. If UNC needs a Rashawn Black bailout shot to beat Notre Dame in Chapel Hill, mind you, a Notre Dame team without Trey Wirtz,
their best player.
There you go.
And UNC is in a world of trouble.
Notre Dame ain't bad, fellas. Watch out for Notre Dame. They got to learn how to get over the hump. Once they do, I think they're going to be okay. Chapel Hill.
Hey, like I want to on the dress thing. I want to give a piece of advice to all the young assistant coaches out there. Never outdress the head coach. Never outdress the head coach.
Absolutely.
I see some of these boys' games, and it looks, the head coach got on sports coat, slacks, maybe a tie, maybe not.
Yeah.
And the assistant coaches or the entourage will
like they go to church on Sunday.
Yeah, they look like they've been to Mr. Hostile, always. They got a
4 or 5 button suit on. I know.
Yeah, 10 buttons on a suit. I mean, come on, guys. Come on, don't outdress the head coach. Take your role model is the head coach.
Now, the giveaway is when the assistant coach runs into the locker room at halftime of the girls' game. He's going to put on that suit. He got on like the sweats, and he runs in the halftime with that big old bag over his shoulder. He's going to change. Guys, it's been a fun show. Glad to get back to it again for the new year. Coach Groove, let's have a 2-0 week this week. 2-0 week. Go, everybody in Indiana, go. I'm with you in the Indiana thing. Everybody in Indiana, go. Coach Lewis, thanks for being on. We'll catch all you guys next week. I'm Langston. That's Rick. That's Alex. That's Randall. That's Gary. That's Coach Groove. We are talking preps. Catch you in 7.
Later.